Hello, friends. Welcome back to Transcendent Astrology and Tarot. My name is Michelle Fondin. I'm an author, speaker, astrologer, and tarot reader. And today we are going to talk about the full moon in Capricorn, the second full moon in Capricorn in 1 month that is occurring on Sunday, July 21st, 2024 at 3:17 a.m. Pacific time. If you are interested in that, please do stay tuned. This one is going to be a crazy analysis, and I would highly suggest that you go get your cup of tea or coffee to watch this video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do tarot and astrology readings. You can book that below at michellefondinauthor.com. Oh boy, second full moon in Capricorn in 1 month. The last full moon in Capricorn occurred at 1 degree of Capricorn, and that happened on June 21st of 2024, right at the beginning of Cancer season. Here we are at the end of Cancer season, and we have a second full moon in Capricorn at 29 degrees of Capricorn. Now, of course, 29 degrees of Capricorn is the last degree, as it is the last degree in any of the signs. The signs are divided into 30 degrees to make a 360-degree wheel. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign, and it is ruled by Saturn. So let's dissect this, guys. The emphasis for this video is going to be on the 29 degrees of Capricorn, and I'm going to explain that throughout this entire video and why it is so incredibly significant. And I feel like we're going to really search for the meaning behind 29 Capricorn. It's going to look different for each and every one of you as it pertains to you and where this is in your birth chart. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at Capricorn and what it represents, as well as Saturn, what Saturn represents in 29 degrees being the last degree of the sign versus that first degree that happened a month ago. If the moon is at 29 degrees of Capricorn, then that means that the sun is in opposition to the moon, which creates a full moon, and the sun is currently at 29 degrees of Cancer. And to be really precise, it's at 29 degrees, 8 minutes. Capricorn represents, as an earth sign, a cardinal earth sign. Cardinal just means the beginning, right? Starting something, the beginning. Capricorn represents structures of society and figuring out the systems on a sensory level, not a feelings level, but a sensory level. And then once the Capricorn has figured out the systems of society, it could be how something works, figuring out those structures completely on a global scale, meaning really understanding the mechanics of the system, then Capricorn goes about following the rules of the structure, okay? And that is really what Saturn represents, is that structure and stability. Now, Capricorn is not here to question the structure. That's more Aquarius. And Capricorn is not here to look at the bigger picture of the structure, which is Sagittarius. Sagittarius has that philosophical, and of course, it's a sign that precedes Capricorn. Sagittarius is about the philosophical and spiritual aspects of the systems and structures of the earth, the society, the universe, and really questions the bigger picture of that. Capricorn is not like that. Being an earth sign, Capricorn is more down to earth. How do these systems work? How do these social structures work? And how do I work them? How do I work the system, in other words? And Capricorns are very good at working the system to the letter. That's why Capricorns, for example, make really good accountants or tax attorneys, because they figure out the system, they understand how it works, and they're really going to follow the structure of how that works. Capricorn is also about sensory perception. So I'm going to look at the system from the outside through the 5 senses. Capricorn is not too much interested in how things work internally. Now, internally, we're talking about the feelings of it all. Capricorn types don't too much care for the feelings of it. It's just like, this is how it works. This is a system. If the system works, then work it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Might be a real good Capricorn aphorism. However, we have the moon here, and we have a full moon here in Capricorn at 29 degrees. And the moon is about feelings. It is about your inner world. And the moon wants to understand the feelings, talk about the feelings, feel the feelings, and understand what is going on from a feelings perspective. The moon is said to be at a detriment in Capricorn. And at 29 degrees, this is the second time. This is the second time that is happening, that it is in Capricorn. And when we look at Saturn as the ruler of Capricorn, Saturn really is about constriction. It's about those structures having solid boundaries, a solid foundation with solid boundaries. And it's about rule making and rule following. When we look at Saturn, we also see that Saturn isn't too interested in feelings either. So Saturn and Capricorn fit really well together for that, in that it's about the structure, it's about the system, it's about following the system, following what makes sense in the system. And if the system's in place, the logic goes through Capricorn that if the system's in place and if it's been working for years, then it probably works. Capricorn doesn't necessarily question the system. As I mentioned, that's more Aquarius. So one thing I would like to note, and I'm going to put the chart up here, and then we will look at the Sabían symbol for 29 Capricorn, because as I mentioned, we're really going to focus this video on 29 degrees Capricorn for so many reasons. Let's look at the chart for this full moon in Capricorn. As you can see right away, as I have the two circles up, is that we have Pluto conjunct the moon. Now they are out of sign. Out of sign means that the moon is at 29 degrees Capricorn and Pluto is at 0 degrees Aquarius. So they're only a degree apart. However, they're out of sign. So we have Pluto in Aquarius, and then we have the moon in Capricorn. One thing I'd like to note here is that Pluto is retrograde, and Pluto has been retrograde. So what I like to say is that Pluto is slowly moonwalking back, pun totally intended there. Pluto is slowly moonwalking back toward 29 degrees of Capricorn, right where the moon is. Now, since Pluto moves so slow, whether it's retrograde or direct, it's still moving. And it is still moving backward toward that 29 degree mark where Pluto will be on September 2nd of 2024. Now, Pluto has been here before. Pluto has been at 29 degrees Capricorn before. A few times, several times, going over 29 degrees, direct and retrograde, direct and retrograde, direct and retrograde. And that's something we're certainly going to address. Let's look at the sun. The sun is at 29 degrees Cancer. It is all alone in the sign of Cancer. It's not even conjunct Venus, as Venus is about 12 degrees apart in Leo. And there are no other planets direct conjunction to the sun. So the real focus here is the moon, I feel, and the moon conjunct Pluto. Pluto is extremely strong. There's an emphasis on Pluto being retrograde. And in a minute, we'll go over the other planets that are also retrograde at this time. I'd like to jump ahead and read the Sabían symbol. This is from an astrological mandala by Dane Rudhyar, who was an early 20th century astrologer, an amazing 20th century astrologer. And the Sabían symbols represent each of the degrees of the zodiac. They're interpreted by spiritual means. Here it says, some people equate them to the American I Ching, like the I Ching, I'm sure you've heard of the I Ching. Okay, so let's look at 29 degrees Capricorn. A woman reading tea leaves And the keynote is the ability to see the signature of hidden meaning in every occurrence, drawing one's attention. Man has always sought to interpret the meaning of events or situations which baffle him in terms of specific omens or signatures. The reading of tea leaves is only a commonplace modern version of a certain type of procedure used by priests of all ancient religions. The practice is based on a realization of the relation of everything to everything else. A definition of astrology given by Mark Jones. We're going to jump down, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because I feel that this is really important here. This is essentially what is meant by true clairvoyance, the capacity to see in everything the signature of deeper realities. The signature of deeper realities. That's what I would like you to keep in mind as we go over 29 degrees Capricorn. 29 degrees Capricorn would be the end of Capricorn looking at structures that have been around and structures that have been in place according to certain rules and regulations and bylaws, if you will. And as we have moved through Capricorn, Capricorn in each decan matures in its energy, gets wiser, has more wisdom in its energy. And when we look at the vast difference between 29 degrees Capricorn to 0 degrees of Aquarius, the difference is large because we look at the constriction of Saturn to the planet Uranus, which is about rebellion and revolution, which is the ruler of Aquarius. Saturn is also the ancient ruler of Aquarius, which seems bizarre, right? That we should have 2 signs in a row whose ruler is Saturn. I don't know what they were thinking. They hadn't yet discovered Uranus. But even so, Saturn and Uranus co-ruling Aquarius could mean the liberation of structures of society. And so when we think about this, it could be any structure that you have also put in place on a personal level. So as you go through the structures of your life that made sense to you because they've been working for years and years and years and years, and you've been going through the motions of those structures, whether they be habits or conventions or traditions, it's time at 29 degrees to put into question whether or not these structures have worked for you. It's time to say, is it time to liberate these structures, to break apart these structures, to start anew with these structures? And when I say that the 29 degrees through the Sabían symbol means finding the significance in the deeper meaning, the clairvoyance of that is being able to see ahead, being able to dismount the structures of your life that probably are out of date and don't make sense anymore, and being able to dismantle them in your mind's eye and to say, how would my life look if I were to completely dismantle this specific structure? And really that is the emphasis of this. And it's something that has been going on for quite some time, the emphasis on this 29 degrees of Capricorn. To that end, I would like to look back because I felt that there was something with 29 degrees Capricorn at the beginning of COVID. And I was right. It's not Pluto. I really thought it might have been Pluto, but Pluto wasn't quite there yet. But it was Saturn. So I'm putting up the chart for March 14th of 2020. And it's debatable to me as to when the lockdown started. I feel like they started later in California. I'm not sure. I thought it was 3/17. Maybe it was 3/14. Let's look at that lineup for March 14th of 2020 in Capricorn. We have Saturn. And I'm emphasizing this because of the 29 degrees of Capricorn. We have Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, at 29 degrees, 23 minutes of, this is like the last hurrah, the last hurrah of Saturn in Capricorn. 29 degrees, 23 minutes on March 14th of 2020, which is still conjunct Pluto. it is still conjunct Pluto, which is at 24 degrees. And then we have Jupiter conjunct Pluto at 21 degrees of Capricorn. And then we have Mars there, of course, at 18. So that whole shebanga lineup was what was in place at the beginning of COVID. And here we are, the ruler of Capricorn, the true ruler of Capricorn at 29 degrees of Capricorn. Now, let me just put this into perspective for you. Saturn takes 29.4 years on average to go around the zodiac wheel. 29.4 years to go around the zodiac wheel. That means that Saturn, the last time Saturn was at 29 degrees Capricorn was 29.4 years prior to March 14th of 2020. So whatever was going on in your life, if you were alive then, you might want to take a look at that. What was going on in your life when Saturn was at 29 degrees Capricorn? We're talking almost 30 years before 2020. If you were around, if you were alive, then you can look at where you were at on March 14th of 2020. What were your personal structures at that time? Were your personal structures working for you or were they not working for you? Were your personal structures shattered at that time? Did you start to begin new personal structures? And again, we have Pluto there just lurking right behind. It's still conjunct. It's still only 5 degrees away from that 29 degree point. So it's not very far off. So the lessons of transformation and change of Pluto, permanent, right? Permanent transformation and change were still going on at that time. So I needed to point that out to show you how significant this degree is. The other thing I wanted to say about Pluto is that Pluto takes 248 years to go around the zodiac. 248 years. I don't know about you, but I'm not likely to be alive until I'm 248 unless something drastically changes in science. The fact that we as a society have seen Pluto so many times going over this degree, 29 degrees Capricorn, there's something going on here. There's something going on in transformation and change because Pluto spent most of 2023 at 29 degrees Capricorn. Most of 2023. What I'd like you to look at is what was I trying to change in 2023 about my personal life? What is the deeper meaning behind what systems and structures I personally was trying to change? And how did that work? How didn't it work? Did I try to make something else work and I gave up? Because that's really super important here because Pluto is revisiting this again. Not only is Pluto revisiting it again, but it will go back over when it goes back direct, it'll go over 29 Capricorn again. So it'll give you a final opportunity to get deep on your feelings about the transformational changes that are happening around 29 degrees Capricorn in your birth chart. Now I'm going to give you one example and then we'll look at some of the other aspects, but I'm going to give you an example in my life that I'm happy. I'm very happy that Pluto is leaving Capricorn once and for all by January. So by January of 2025, Pluto will have left Capricorn once and for all, and thank God for that. For me, Capricorn is my entire 7th house of partnerships, one-on-one relationships and partnerships. And I will tell you, one-on-one relationships and partnerships have been really tough. For the last 14 years, really tough. And I believe it's been longer. It may have ingressed in around 2008, so it may be closer to 16 years. But for me, it's been super tough. And what I've had to learn with Pluto in my 7th house is to take back my power in relationships, to take back my personal power in relationships, to not give it away or not let anybody else overtake me in personal relationships. And so if I'm looking at the 29-degree mark, it's have I learned all of those lessons surrounding one-on-one individualized relationships and maintaining my power through those relationships. Again, it's going to depend on what house Capricorn happens to fall in your natal chart. And also look back at these specific dates. When we had those slower moving planets at 29 degrees Capricorn, what was going on for you? What was going on? What systems and structures were going on for you that you know you wanted to change or you still need to change? And what else is happening at 29 degrees Capricorn for you? And I know it's just a full moon. I understand that. I understand that moons change so often, but it's not a coincidence, or maybe it is a coincidence, that it is so close to Pluto this time around. Let's take a look at which planets are retrograde during this full moon. So we have Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, which is retrograde at 19 degrees of Pisces. We have Neptune retrograde at 29 degrees Pisces. We have Mercury that is stationed to go retrograde around August 2nd or 3rd, I believe. We have an interesting alignment, an interesting trine with the full moon of something that just happened was that Mars-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. And I did a full video on that last week. I'll post that link right here. Let's first talk about retrograde planets, because Pluto is retrograde, Saturn, Neptune, Mercury is stationing to go retrograde. According to astrologer Robert Hand, retrograde planets are closer to Earth. They give you more of a subjective dose of reality versus an objective dose of reality, which means that it's very hard to gain perspective when a planet is retrograde. It doesn't mean that it's bad, but it does mean that it's really difficult to get that distanced perspective. And so when we look at actions, reactions through retrograde planets, it's important to look at things in a more detailed manner before you act and react. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're malefic or bad. It just means that you need to take a nuanced perspective and maybe look at things from a little bit of a broader perspective rather than getting emotional and up close and personal. All right, so let's look at this trine. Let's look at this trine. There is a trine between the moon, Pluto, and Mars and Uranus. Now, the Mars-Uranus conjunction in Taurus was exact on July 15th of 2024, which is about 6 days prior to this full moon. The good news about it being 6 days ago is that it's lessening in power. They are separating, and also they are conjunct out of sign, because we have Uranus still in Taurus, whereas Mars recently ingressed into Gemini. So there is less power in this, but what I believe, trines are always about something helpful. And what I believe this means is that whatever you were dealing with on July 15th, or perhaps the week prior, or maybe the week after July 15th, 2024, whatever you happened to be working through in Taurus, whatever was happening in Taurus at that time of the Mars-Uranus conjunction, the moon in Capricorn is going to give you a bigger perspective on that, especially with Pluto there. Did something explode? Did something happen? Did something unexpectedly arrive in your life? Was there an unexpected injury? Was there an unexpected money release? Because honestly, Taurus is about money and about foundational things like food and resources. So if we think about it, Mars-Uranus could have been like an explosion of money release, like something was locked out and all of a sudden it opened up for you. So whatever happened to be there, whatever happened to occur in the Taurus areas of your chart during around July 15th, give or take, I feel like the moon and Pluto is going to give you a bigger perspective on it. How do I feel about that? What are my deeper feelings about that? How do I feel about the changes that may have happened or still may be happening with the Mars-Uranus conjunction? The other thing I want to mention is that Saturn is septile, not sextile, septile. Saturn is septile the full moon. Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn, septiles are about something fated, something that is meant to happen, something that is written in the stars. Next, we have a sextile with Neptune. So sextiles are helping hands. Neptune is all about imagination, dissolving boundaries, finding creative solutions to problems. And that looks like a really nice aspect. So even though this full moon I would consider is relatively challenging, it's challenging because Pluto is there. Wherever Pluto is, it's never easy. It's never going to be easy. Pluto is the underworld. So taking a look at the underworld is never going to be easy, but it's always there to help. It sounds odd, but Pluto really is always there to help because it's always there to stir things up, to point you in the right direction. Here's the other thing is that the full moon is in conjunct Mercury, which is stationed. Inconjunctions can represent difficulties of expression. I feel that maybe you will have feelings about this. You will have deeper feelings of the deeper meaning and the deeper significance of 29 degrees Capricorn for you in your life, but you may have a hard time articulating that. And that's okay. Journal, write things down. Maybe you only communicate that to yourself and not to other people. Maybe you journal it and you write it down for a later time so that you can then read the journal entry again. But I do feel that there is something major, and there is some major change that is occurring at 29 degrees Capricorn in your personal life. It has been here before. Saturn has been through it. Pluto has already been through it. Pluto's going back through it. And the moon is here giving you the feelings to move through it. I just feel that you need to get clear on what it is. What is it personally for you? You have a lot of helping hands here. Again, I feel like you do have the support of the universe helping you understand, how can I get to a place where I'm not revisiting 29 Capricorn again with these slower moving planets? And maybe you'll see it again in roughly 30 years, give or take a few years, roughly 30 years with Saturn. But the other two slower moving planets, which we have Uranus and Pluto, will not revisit it after January. Thank God for that. But the lessons are there for you to learn. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what the tarot cards have to say about this full moon in Capricorn. Dear angels and guides, can you help my audience understand maybe just the gist of what they need to learn for this full moon in Capricorn on July 21st of 2024? We got two. Oh my God, I love this. We got the Emperor card and we have the Lovers card. That is amazing. Okay, for me personally, I know there isn't the planet Saturn here, but the Emperor for me does represent Saturn because the Emperor is like the very mature individual who is about stability and structure. The Emperor is represented by the number 4, which is stability. The leader, the father, the authority, That is Saturn. That is so Saturn. And it also says father. Saturn does represent father. The moon represents mother. Saturn represents father. And I do feel like there is a wisdom here. And by 29 degrees Capricorn, you should have attained that wisdom. The wisdom of the emperor, the wisdom of this divine masculine power. So the divine power is that which comes from above. So it's more like not the immature father of 1 degree Capricorn who's just learning, but the 29 degrees Capricorn. It's the father that's already been through all the crap. They've been through their kids going through adolescence and crashing the car and dropping out of college and getting in jail for drunk driving when they're 16 or whatever happens. Like the father that's been through it all, that's 29 degrees Capricorn. There's a wisdom that comes with that. And I feel like you need to use Saturn to find that wisdom. Find the wisdom of 29 Capricorn, of what I have learned up until now that got me to 29 degrees Capricorn with Saturn and Pluto. Like, what got me there? What have I learned along the way? And then we have the Lovers. I love this because the Lovers for me is about balance, unity, healing. It really is. It's about this sense of alignment, harmony, healing. It's about relationships too. Now, this could be your relationship to yourself, and it could be about a relationship to somebody else. But it's like choosing love over choosing the structure. And again, Capricorn is not so good at that. Capricorn is almost married to the idea of the rules and the structure. And the moon is more about the motherly love. It's more about, no, love counts more than the structure. That's why oftentimes the mother will console the child and cajole the child and love on the child. And the father's like, no, they need to tough it out. They need to know what it's like to be an adult, to be out there in the world. So you need a little bit of both. You need the strictness and the wisdom of Saturn, but you also need the Lovers. You also need like the harmony and the joy of love and feeling and that deeper inner feeling. Okay, so let's see. What else does the audience need to know about the full moon in Capricorn at 29 degrees? We need to reshuffle because nothing came out. Eight of Wands, gaining momentum. Yeah, I feel like once you have got it figured out, what are my lessons? What is the wisdom that 29 degrees Capricorn has taught me throughout all these years, especially from 2020 through now? And it's going to go on till the end of the year. But what has 29 degrees Capricorn taught me? Once you figure that out, you will have momentum moving forward. I feel like if you've been stuck because you keep repeating the same lessons or you're trying to hold on to old systems and structures that aren't working, once you get it, then you're going to be able to move forward in your life much quicker. Let's see, any final solutions for the audience with the full moon in Capricorn? Any final solutions? We've got 5 of Cups in reverse and it says overcoming despair. Overcoming despair. I love it because if it's been difficult for the past several years, you are now overcoming that. You are now overcoming that despair because you're learning. It's the wisdom of the last degree. It's there for you. And you get a redo with Pluto. You really get a redo. Twice you get a redo. Starting September 2nd of 2024, Pluto will be back at 29 degrees Capricorn and it's retrograde. So it's going to retrograde, I think, to 28 degrees perhaps, and then it'll go direct again. So you will get a redo twice. over 29 Capricorn with Pluto, you'll get a redo. Even if you mess things up, the last few times Pluto was over 29 degrees, you're gonna get a redo. And Two of Cups in reverse, unhealthy attachment. This looks like my chart. My chart with the 7th house in Capricorn. But I feel like what you're learning is to let go of unhealthy attachments. Now, unhealthy attachments are anything. It could be an addiction. It could be to a system that you have in place that's not working for you. It could be an allegiance to a societal system that is not working. It could be an attachment to a person, for example, that has not been working for you, but you're still attached to them. So I really feel like whatever it is that you're holding on to that is an old structure or system, Capricorn, whatever you're holding on to that you haven't been able to let go of yet, analyze it. Analyze it. And Pluto, I assure you, will help you to let go of that outdated system or structure, and you will be able to start fresh, start anew. And then once you do that, you will, Eight of Wands, gain momentum forward. Eight of Wands is about a lot of good things happening. And I believe once you make that happen for you, a lot of good things will come through. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for your subscription below. Thank you so much for giving the video a thumbs up and sharing with your friends who like astrology. Thank you so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can purchase one of my 11 published books. You can book a reading with me, and I will see you in the next video.